All right, let's put you in the hot seat for a second. Imagine you're a commander. A hurricane just ripped your world to shreds. Through the fog, you see an enemy you absolutely cannot beat. You've got two choices. One, go down in a blaze of glory and take all your people with you. Or two, surrender. Commit professional suicide, but save every single person on your crew. What do? This isn't some made-up story. This really happened, back in February 1781.
And that choice, well, that's what this is all about. It's about what happens when the entire world outside falls into chaos, and the only thing you have left to hold on to is your own internal compass. It's the ultimate battle between prudence and panic.
Now, to really understand just how heavy this choice was, we got to rewind the clock. We're going back to the American Revolution. The year is 1781, and the British are desperately trying to choke the life out of the rebellion with a really risky Southern strategy.
Okay, so picture this. At that time, the Chesapeake Bay was the whole chessboard. Virginia was the economic engine of the Revolution, pumping out food, supplies, everything. So the British plan was brutally simple. Grab the bay, turn it into a superhighway for their raiding parties, and basically starve George Washington's army into giving up.
And you've got two key players in this drama. Leading the charge for the British is none other than the infamous traitor, Benedict Arnold. He was a brilliant fighter, no doubt, but he had a super brittle ego, always needing to prove how great he was. And then you have Captain George Gayton, and he could not be more different. A 57-year-old veteran, a totally solid leader, who got that being in command wasn't about fame, it was about taking care of your people. It was about stewardship.
You see, Captain Gayton's ship, the HMS Romulus, it wasn't just a ship. It was the shield for this whole strategy. It was a big, bad, floating fortress, the strategic anchor blocking the river. It's what let Arnold's guys run wild and then get back to safety. The Romulus was the linchpin holding the entire thing together. But then, nature throws a massive wrench in the works. A monster of a storm, a February gale, basically a winter hurricane, just slams into the bay. And we're not talking about a little bad weather here. This was a total system meltdown. It created an information blackout, shattered the British blockade, and turned their perfectly laid plan into pure, terrifying chaos. And right in the middle of all that chaos, Captain Gayton gets pushed into an impossible corner. This is that classic no-win scenario that's going to test everything he's made of.
Because you'd think the end of the storm would be a good thing, right? Nope, not this time. As that fog starts to lift, what does he see? The absolute last thing he wants to see. A French naval squadron. The storm hadn't just beaten his ship up, it had served him up on a silver platter right into an enemy trap.
And let's be crystal clear about this. Gayton is toast. Tactically speaking, it's over. He's stuck in what military folks call a death zone, a much bigger enemy force on one side and dangerous shallow water on the other. He is completely boxed in, no way to fight, no way to run. So now, the real battle begins. Not against the French, but inside Gayton's own head. What's it going to be? The ego action? Fight a hopeless battle, go down in a blaze of glory just to protect his reputation, and watch all 200 of his exhausted men die? Or does he take the right action? Commit career suicide by surrendering, but in doing so, honor that sacred trust of command and make sure every single one of his sailors gets to live.
Gayton chose his people. He gave the one order no captain ever wants to give: strike the colors. He lowered the flag, didn't even fire a shot. Now, to anybody watching, it looked like a total failure, but internally, that was an act of incredible strength. He literally traded his own pride for their lives.
So this isn't just a cool story from the history books. This exact moment has become, well, it's become an ethical laboratory, and it's being used today to teach some of our most modern warriors.
It's part of this incredible training method called a spiritual fitness staff ride. Groups like the Catholic Man of the Chapel at Langley Air Force Base sponsor these, and the whole idea is to treat old battlefields like labs for ethics. The goal is to help service members learn how to dominate what they call their internal battle space. You know, that fight inside your own head against fear, against ego, against panic. So they're ready when the pressure is on, for real. And the way they do it is really brilliant. It's a three-step process. First, you hit the books, you study the background. Then you actually go walk the ground where these decisions were made. And finally, you all sit down and integrate the lessons. Talk about what you learned. Learn, walk, reflect. It's a powerful method. And you know, this whole idea isn't even new. It goes way back to the famous Prussian military thinker, Karl von Clausewitz. He's the one who said that studying real choices made under real pressure is what builds good judgment.
It teaches you how to think in a crisis, not just what to think from a textbook.
Okay, so let's break it down. What can we actually learn from Captain Gayton's decision? It really boils down to 3 huge principles of command that are just as critical today as they were back then.
First up, prudence. Now, this isn't about being timid or scared. It's the exact opposite. It's the discipline to see the world as it actually is, not how you wish it was. Gaventon didn't let the storm or the French ships drive the bus. He chose to steer by what he ought to do, which was protect his men, not by what his panic was screaming at him to do.
Principle number 2 is stewardship, or to put it simply, people over prestige. Every single time. It comes from this deep understanding that leadership is a sacred trust. It's this principle of imago Dei, the idea that every human life is created in the image of God and has this inherent dignity. Gayton knew that protecting those 200 souls was infinitely more important than his career.
And the third principle is fortitude. Now, we often think of fortitude as, aggression, charging into the fight. But sometimes, true strength is restraint. It took unbelievable fortitude to make a choice that, to everyone else, looked like weakness. Calm is a commanded decision. You have to have order inside yourself before you can bring order to the world outside.
And this is the kicker. That one quiet, personal decision that Gayton made, it didn't just save 200 men. It literally changed the course of history.
The capture of this one ship ended up being the blueprint for the end of the war. It proved to the French, hey, the British shield can be broken. And that little bit of confidence was all they needed. It encouraged them to bring their entire fleet to the Chesapeake later that year, which led to trapping the main British army at Yorktown and ultimately securing American independence.
And what about our 2 commanders? Let's look at how their stories end. Benedict Arnold, the brittle leader, driven by his ego? Yeah, he died a rich man, but he was despised. He sold his soul for a title. But George Gayton, the solid leader, he lost his ship, but he died a respected admiral, honored for his wisdom and his character.
So when you look at the final score, the real victory here is just massive. You've got the first domino falling towards American independence. The ship itself literally switches sides and fights against the British. And most importantly, 200 trained sailors got to live and fight another day. All because their captain understood that his greatest asset wasn't his ship, it was his people. And that's what it all comes down to, for us, right here, right now. Forget the 18th century warship for a second. Think about your own life, your job, your family. When that storm hits, and you know it will, and your reputation is on the line, do you have the internal strength to protect the people who are counting on you?